The world feels like it is burning, and you can feel the heat. You wake up, and before your feet even hit the floor, your mind is already racing. The notifications are stacking up, the news is screaming catastrophe. There is a tightness in your chest that never really goes away. We call this anxiety. We call it stress. But biologically, it is a state of siege. And in the middle of this chaos, what if I told you that the weapon you need isn't a new app, or a pill, or a complex therapy routine? What if the most sophisticated tool for hacking your own biology, for literally rewiring your panic response, is a string of beads that has been gathering dust in a drawer for 500 years? It sounds absurd. It sounds like superstition. But modern science is starting to discover something that looks a lot like a miracle. We are finding that the simple, rhythmic act of praying the Rosary does something to the human nervous system that is almost impossible to replicate with modern medicine. It regulates the heart. It synchronizes the brain. It acts as a manual override for anxiety. This isn't just about faith. This is about biology. And today, we are going to bridge the gap between the altar, the laboratory, to understand why this ancient prayer might just be the most relevant technology for the 21st century. Before we can appreciate the cure, we have to brutally understand the disease. Because the problem isn't just that you are busy. The problem is that your body thinks it is being hunted. You have an operating system inside you that is millions of years old. It has two modes. Mode 1 is the sympathetic nervous system. This is the gas pedal. It is the fight or flight response designed to save your life when a saber-toothed tiger jumps out of the bushes. It floods your veins with cortisol and adrenaline. It sharpens your vision. It stops your digestion. It prepares you for violence or escape. Mode 2 is the parasympathetic nervous system. This is the brake pedal, the rest and digest mode. This is where you heal. This is where you connect with other humans. This is where you feel peace. Here is the tragedy of modern life. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a predator wanting to eat you and an email from your boss wanting a report. To your nervous system, a vibrating phone is a threat. A deadline is a threat. A comment on social media is a threat. So you are living with your foot jammed on the gas pedal from the moment you wake up until the moment you collapse into bed. You are bathing your organs in a toxic soup of stress hormones, day after day, year after year. This is why we are sick. This is why we have autoimmune diseases, insomnia, and chronic anxiety. We are a species that has forgotten how to exhale. We have the hardware for peace, but we have completely lost the software code to access it. We try to hack our way back to balance with noise-canceling headphones and expensive supplements. But while we are looking forward for a solution, we should have been looking back. Enter the Rosary. If you grew up Catholic, you might see it as just a ritual, a monotonous string of Hail Marys that you had to mumble through in church. But if you strip away the baggage and look at the mechanics of the object, you see something genius. The Rosary is a tactile, rhythmic, physical anchor. It is a piece of spiritual technology. It was developed over centuries, not in a lab, but through the lived experience of millions of people who needed a way to find stillness in a brutal world. The structure is deceptively simple. 5 decades, 10 prayers each, a rhythm, a repetition. Critics call it vain repetition. But neurologically, repetition is the key. The rhythm gives your monkey mind, that part of your brain that is constantly screaming about the future and the past, a job to do. It occupies the surface level of your attention so that the deeper parts of your consciousness can actually breathe. It is the same principle as a mantra in Eastern traditions, but it is wrapped in a narrative. You aren't just making sounds, you are meditating on the life of Christ. But something even more profound is happening beneath the surface. Something that happens to your blood, your heart, and your breath. This is where we leave the church pew and enter the medical clinic. In 2001, Dr. Luciano Bernardi, a researcher at the University of Pavia in Italy, decided to run an experiment. He gathered 23 healthy adults and hooked them up to a suite of monitoring equipment. He wanted to see what happened to their cardiovascular systems when they recited the Rosary in its original Latin. He didn't tell them how to breathe. He just told them to pray. What he saw on those monitors was startling. When the participants started the rhythmic chant of the Ave Maria, Their breathing automatically slowed down. It shifted from the chaotic, rapid breathing of normal life to a steady, rhythmic flow of exactly 6 breaths per minute. 1 breath every 10 seconds. This wasn't a random number. This specific frequency, 0.1 hertz, is a magic number in human physiology. It is the frequency of cardiac coherence. At this rhythm, the signals between your heart, your lungs, and your brain lock into perfect synchronization. It is a state of maximum efficiency. Bernardi found that during the Rosary, the participants' heart rate variability, which is the gold standard metric for a healthy nervous system, skyrocketed. Their baroreflex sensitivity, which controls blood pressure, optimized instantly. The prayer didn't just calm them down, it mechanically tuned their bodies like a high-performance engine. The study concluded that the Rosary wasn't just a religious practice. It was a health practice. It was arguably one of the most effective breathing exercises ever documented, disguised as a prayer. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. It's not just about the breath. It's about the vagus nerve. This is the longest nerve in your body, the superhighway that connects your brain to your heart and your gut. It is the physical switch that turns on that rest and digest system we talked about earlier. How do you trigger it? You trigger it through slow diaphragm breathing, and you trigger it through vocalization. When you pray the Rosary out loud, the vibration of your vocal cords combined with that 6 breaths per minute rhythm sends a massive signal up the vagus nerve to the brain. We are safe. It physically forces the body to drop its defenses. It flushes the cortisol out of your system. It is a built-in tranquilizer that you can access anytime, anywhere. And then there is the brain itself. This is the frontier of neurotheology. Researchers like Dr. Andrew Newberg have spent decades scanning the brains of people in deep prayer. They have found that practices like the Rosary physically restructure the gray matter inside your skull. When you focus on the beads and the prayers, activity in your frontal lobes, the area responsible for attention and emotional regulation, increases. You are literally working out the muscle of focus. Simultaneously, the activity in your parietal lobes starts to fade. The parietal lobe is the part of your brain that orients you in space and time. It creates the distinction between me and you, between self and world. When that area goes quiet, the boundaries dissolve. You feel a sense of oneness. You feel connected to something larger than yourself. This isn't just a poetic description of a spiritual experience. It is a neurological event, and perhaps most importantly for us, this practice sedates the amygdala. The amygdala is your fear center. It is the alarm bell. In modern humans, the amygdala is often swollen and overactive. Regular practice of the Rosary creates neuroplastic changes that shrink the amygdala's reactivity. You are physically rewiring your brain to be less afraid. So where does this leave us? It leaves us with a stunning convergence. We have modern science finally catching up to ancient wisdom. We have data verifying what saints and grandmothers have known for centuries. The peace you feel after a Rosary isn't a placebo. It is physiological reality. It is the result of a perfectly designed system that aligns your breath, tones your nerves, and quiets your brain. A study published just recently in 2025 in the Journal of Religion and Health looked at hundreds of people and confirmed this again. Regular Rosary prayer correlates with lower anxiety and higher empathy, rivaling the best secular mindfulness techniques on the market. But the Rosary adds a dimension that mindfulness often lacks. It adds the vertical dimension. It adds the relationship with the divine. So here is my challenge to you. You don't have to be a monk. You don't even have to be a good Catholic. You just have to be a human being who is tired of being stressed. I want you to try an experiment. For the next 7 days, find 10 minutes. Grab a set of beads or just use your fingers and pray. Don't worry about the theology if you aren't there yet. Just do the physical practice. Say the words. Fall into the rhythm. Breathe. Let the repetition do its work. Treat it like a lab experiment on your own nervous system. Watch what happens to your anxiety levels. Watch what happens to your sleep. Watch what happens to your ability to handle the chaos of the world without crumbling. The world is noisy, and it is only going to get louder. You need an anchor, you need a weapon, and it turns out the most powerful one has been hanging on the cross the whole time. Try it. See for yourself.